It began like any other day. Parents, with smiles on their faces, dropped their children off at daycare, trusting their little ones to the care of someone they believed was there to nurture them. But for one woman, everything changed when a routine investigation led to a shocking revelation. A laptop, a simple piece of technology, would become the key to unraveling a nightmare that no one saw coming. As authorities delved deeper, they uncovered something so horrifying. It shook the foundation of a community that thought it was safe. This is not just a story about crime. It's about betrayal, deception, and trust shattered beyond repair. Heather Kuhn was a daycare worker, loved and trusted by many. But behind closed doors, her connection to a convicted sex offender would spark a chain of events no one could have predicted. It wasn't until police searched her home that they stumbled upon a discovery that would haunt them forever. What they found on that laptop, something so disturbing. It threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew about the woman they had once considered harmless. Stay with me as we unravel this chilling story, where every detail is more shocking than the last. Keep watching, because what you're about to learn will leave you speechless. This is the untold story of Heather Kuhn, a woman whose secrets were too dark to remain hidden any longer. How well do you really know the people around you? Could someone you trust be hiding something much darker? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Welcome to True Crime Files, where we explore the darkest corners of the criminal world, telling the stories that leave a mark on the world. If you're fascinated by twisted minds and shocking cases, this is a place for you. Each story we uncover brings you closer to the truth, no matter how unsettling it may be. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a chilling episode. The stories are far from over, and the truth, no matter how hard it is to hear, is waiting to be uncovered. It all started with what seemed like a routine check, a simple visit to ensure that a man, already convicted for his crimes, was abiding by the terms of his probation. James Osborne, 34 years old, was a registered sex offender. His past was already stained with charges of child pornography, but the authorities had no reason to believe that the worst was yet to come. Osborne was supposed to be living at a registered address, but when officers arrived at his home, they discovered something disturbing. He wasn't there. Instead, he was staying at a different address, one that was never reported. This was a violation of his probation, something that could have led to severe consequences. But as law enforcement prepared to take action, they had no idea that this check would soon uncover something far more alarming than they could have ever expected. The house Osborne was living in didn't belong to him. It belonged to Heather Kuhn, a daycare worker. Kuhn, only 25 years old at the time, was trusted by many parents to care for their children. She worked at a daycare center in Elyria, Ohio, a place where parents sent their children each day, believing they were safe in her care. But what investigators didn't know was that Kuhn's life was entangled with someone who posed a grave danger to the very children she was entrusted to protect. As the officers searched the home, they began to gather evidence that would soon become the cornerstone of a deeply disturbing investigation. Among the items seized during the search was a laptop, an ordinary device, something that many people use every day without thinking twice. But when the authorities opened it, they found something that would haunt them forever. Inside that laptop were files, videos, and images that depicted something so chilling, it seemed almost unreal. These weren't just random images. They were clear, undeniable evidence of a crime involving children, something that defied logic and compassion. The images and videos on that laptop didn't just tell a story of abuse. They pointed to a much darker truth. What shocked investigators wasn't just the content itself. It was a realization that Heather Kuhn, the daycare worker who had been entrusted with the care of young children, was connected to these horrifying acts. The discovery on that laptop led to an immediate investigation into her role, and as the details unfolded, it became clear that Kuhn's involvement in this case went far deeper than anyone had anticipated. But the investigation didn't stop there. As the evidence continued to mount, authorities began to ask questions that no one could have anticipated. How could someone like Kuhn, someone who was supposed to be a protector of children, be involved in something so monstrous? What led her down this path? And why had she allowed herself to be connected to someone like Osborne, a man with a violent and disturbing past? What they uncovered in the weeks that followed would reveal a disturbing truth about trust, deception, and the lengths to which some people will go to hide the darkness within. The full extent of the crime was still yet to be uncovered, but what they found on that laptop was just the beginning of a long, twisted journey into a case that would leave everyone shaken. How should law enforcement handle those who have already been convicted of crimes like this? Should there be stricter monitoring of registered sex offenders? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As the investigation into James Osborne's probation violation continued, authorities were simply doing their job, checking for minor infractions. They had no idea what would come next. The laptop, seized during the search, was believed to contain little more than typical evidence of Osborne's previous crimes. But when they powered it on, what they found inside wasn't what anyone expected. What should have been routine was now anything but. As investigators scrolled through the files on the laptop, they stumbled upon something that would forever change the course of this case and the lives of countless families. The images and files on that laptop were not the usual child pornography they had expected. Instead, they found video footage that was as unimaginable as it was horrifying. The footage didn't just feature disturbing content. It showed a young infant, an unidentified child, being assaulted. The act was brutal, and the horror was clear in the chilling moments captured on camera. As investigators watched, the severity of what they were seeing became painfully evident. The child in the video was clearly in distress, and the situation was undeniably grave. But the true horror wasn't just in the act. It was in the realization that this was happening at the hands of someone who had been trusted with the care of children every day. The video didn't just stay on the laptop. Investigators quickly realized that the footage was linked to Heather Kuhn, the daycare worker. The trail led directly back to her workplace, ABC Kids Childcare in Elyria, Ohio, a place where, for months, parents had trusted Kuhn to care for their children. A place where the worst crime imaginable had been taking place behind closed doors. As the evidence mounted, parents were notified. The shock and panic that followed were overwhelming. They had trusted Kuhn with their children's safety, but now they were forced to confront the terrifying possibility that she had betrayed that trust in the worst way imaginable. In the days that followed, the community was rocked to its core. Questions arose. How could this have happened? Was there anyone else involved? How many children had been affected? While the authorities worked tirelessly to piece together the full extent of the crimes, the impact on the community was undeniable. Parents were left questioning how such a breach of trust could happen in a place where they believed their children were safe. And for Kuhn, the life she had built, her reputation, her job, began to unravel. But the story didn't end with the discovery of the video. It was only the beginning. The true scope of the crimes would continue to unfold as more evidence was uncovered and more details emerged. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that this was not just a single isolated incident. It was part of a much larger web of deceit and betrayal. How do we protect children in places where they should be safe? What measures should daycares implement to ensure that no one can exploit their trust like this? What steps should we take to safeguard the most vulnerable members of our society? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The evidence was undeniable. The video, the images, the direct connection to ABC Kids Childcare, it all pointed to one person, Heather Kuhn, the woman who had been entrusted with the care of young children. The woman parents believed was there to nurture and protect, was now at the center of a criminal investigation that left an entire community shaken. Law enforcement wasted no time. Kuhn was arrested at her home and charged with multiple counts of child rape. The news spread quickly, leaving parents in disbelief. Many of them had left their children in her care for months, some for years. Now, they were forced to ask themselves an unthinkable question. Had their child been one of the victims? But as the case progressed, the questions didn't stop with Kuhn. Investigators began to look deeper into her relationship with James Osborne, the registered sex offender she had been living with. Was she acting alone? Or was he the mastermind behind the crimes? When officers searched Osborne's phone, they found images of child pornography, but Osborne denied taking the pictures himself. He claimed he had simply downloaded them. Still, his past was impossible to ignore. His history of exploiting children had already landed him on the sex offender registry, and his failure to comply with probation restrictions only made the case against him stronger. With the weight of the evidence stacked against them, the courtroom became the battleground where the fate of both Kuhn and Osborne would be decided. Kuhn's attorney argued that she had been coerced, that Osborne had manipulated her into committing these horrific acts, that she was, in some way, a victim herself. But the footage found on her laptop told a different story. The videos did not show someone being forced against their will. They showed someone who actively participated, someone who had made a choice. The prosecution did not hold back. They painted a clear picture of betrayal, abuse, and cruelty beyond comprehension. The argument that Kuhn had simply been following orders was not enough to absolve her. She had worked at a daycare. She had access to children every day, and she had used that access to commit unimaginable crimes. As the trial moved forward, the families of the victims sat in the courtroom, waiting for justice. Some of them broke down in tears as they listened to the evidence being presented. Others remained silent, unable to process the horror of what had happened. Then, in 2016, 3 years after the investigation first began, Heather Kuhn pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child rape. James Osborne also pleaded guilty to complicity to rape and other related charges. The sentencing was severe. Both faced the possibility of life in prison without the chance of parole. The judge had the final decision, but one thing was clear. Neither of them would ever be free again. Justice had been served, but for the families, the wounds would never fully heal. The trauma, the betrayal, the broken trust, it would stay with them forever. What do you think? Should Kuhn have received a harsher punishment? Should those who enable crimes like this face the same penalties as those who commit them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As this case unfolded, it didn't just raise alarms about the individuals involved. It exposed a much larger issue, one that many in the community were too afraid to face. How was someone like James Osborne, a registered sex offender, able to be near children after his past conviction? How did he manage to live with Heather Kuhn, a daycare worker who had constant access to vulnerable children? These were questions that many would ask, but not many could answer. The system that was supposed to protect children had, in this case, failed them in ways that were impossible to ignore. James Osborne, with his history of child pornography and his previous conviction, was on probation. He was supposed to be monitored, restricted, and held accountable for his actions. But somehow, he found a way to evade the system. He violated the terms of his probation, living at an unregistered address, and yet no one was watching closely enough to stop him. But even worse, he had access to a daycare worker, someone who was supposed to be a safe guardian for children, and together, they were able to hide their crimes from the world. The daycare where Heather Kuhn worked, ABC Kids Childcare, had its own dark history. Despite being a place where children were supposed to be safe, it had a number of past violations, some of which were directly tied to the safety and well-being of the children it cared for. One of the most glaring failures was the daycare's inability to properly screen its employees. It was discovered that the daycare had not conducted adequate background checks on staff members, allowing individuals with questionable histories to gain access to the children. This oversight was a breach of responsibility, one that critics argue contributed directly to the events that unfolded. The justice system, too, came under fire. Many believe that more could have been done to prevent what happened. The failure to properly monitor Osborne, despite his previous conviction, raised serious concerns about how effectively the system works to prevent recidivism among sex offenders. After all, he had been on probation for child pornography charges. He should not have been allowed near children, let alone live in a home with one. But somehow, the system allowed this dangerous individual to slip through the cracks. As the investigation continued, new regulations began to be proposed to prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future. The need for more stringent background checks for daycare workers became a hot topic, with many pushing for stricter laws to ensure that those who work with children are fully vetted. There were calls for greater oversight of sex offenders, with some demanding that individuals like Osborne face even stricter limitations once they are released from prison. The need to protect children from those who would exploit their trust seemed more urgent than ever. But the question still remains: how many more children are at risk in a system that is supposed to protect them? How many others are falling through the cracks? Should the justice system do more to safeguard children? And should sex offenders face even stricter restrictions after serving their time? What do you think? Let's discuss in the comments below. This case is a chilling reminder that sometimes the people we trust the most can be hiding the darkest secrets. Heather Kuhn and James Osborne were trusted figures in the community, one as a daycare worker, the other as someone trying to start fresh after a criminal past. Yet, behind closed doors, they engaged in a web of betrayal and horror, causing irreversible damage to the lives of innocent children and their families. While Kuhn and Osborne will never walk free again, the scars they left behind will haunt those affected for the rest of their lives. The pain, the trust that was shattered, and the lives that were forever changed. These are the true costs of their actions. It's a story that serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and the need for a system that truly protects those who are most vulnerable. If you found this video insightful, give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more true crime deep dives.